Something very magical happened during COVID. Not much magical happened, apart from everyone used hand sanitizers before poking at vegetables in grocery stores, which I kind of agreed with. The rest of it I didn't so much. But something did happen, which is because we couldn't necessarily get on air corridors without Grant Shapps' pre-approval, which he then reneged upon a few days later, we had to make do with going around good old Blighty for our hollybobs. And I think people sort of rediscovered the wonders of this country and thought, hey, it's quite nice visiting Britain. And so we started to get some momentum. Airbnbs in the UK were doing well. People found all of a sudden that their rental properties, which might get 1 or 2 visitors a year, were booked out because everybody wanted to go to the Great British Seaside or go walking in beautiful Brecon or experiencing the wonders of mini Switzerland in the Lake District. Is that all potentially going to be undone with a tourist tax? Well, let's speak now to a man who used to sit in this very seat and present wonderful shows on Talk. He is chair of Visit Britain and former chair of the Visit England Advisory Board, Mr. Nick Bois, CBE. Good afternoon, Nick.
Hello, Alex. Lovely to talk to you.
Oh, wonderful to have you here. 2 familiar voices for our audience there. Now, Angela Rayner is really pushing for Rachel Reeves to announce a tourist tax, giving cash-strapped councillors the power to charge visitors for hotel stays. Apparently, Rachel Reeves is pushing back against this. Do you think that if something like a tourist tax in hotels came into play in parts of Britain, it would actively prevent people or dissuade people from visiting those parts of Britain? Or could it be a good opportunity to add a few quid on the end of the bill, like you do in places like Marrakesh or Barcelona? People will still come anyway, and it's a great way to get more money in the nation's coffers.
Well, I think the context I would give you is that our tourism industry is actually one of the most heavily taxed already when compared to our international competitors. So, for example, we pay VAT at 20%. There are concessions in other countries, competitor destinations, that reduced it to 5%. They give exceptions for hospitality. We have issues where we have, for example, and this is for international visitors, air passenger duty. It's one of the highest rates when you look around competitor countries around the world. And we have some of the most expensive visas, fees for coming into this country. So the idea of another tax does sound a little troubling, and many people in the sector would be worried about piling on more costs. However, I think it's not, and I would say this when I was an ex-politician, it's not quite a yes-no question there, because we already have tourism taxes in one form or another in different parts of the United Kingdom, but also, for example, in the city of Manchester, where they created a what's called effectively a business improvement district. But basically, the hotel industry got together in Manchester and said, we'd like to put £1 a night on stays, but, and this is the key, Alex, spend that money on encouraging more visitors to Manchester, improving things in Manchester to make more attractions, rather than let it go into a huge pot of money in a council somewhere that may end up doing all sorts of things but not helping tourism.
It's a problem, though, that if places that are successful in tourism already, a lot of people might go to Manchester to see big sporting events or concerts, that they already have tourists. Those hotels aren't struggling to get people going to visit. And then if the money's being put back into the same sort of ecosystem, it's not actually helping to spread the wealth to some of our other communities, which once upon a time in the Victorian era were the places to be. I think about Skegness. I think about gorgeous Eastbourne, where my brother lives. I think about our coastal towns with these wonderful big Victorian hotels. And now we've got, you know, nice British summers all of a sudden. Wouldn't it be lovely to encourage people to go back to the Great British Seaside and have a holiday there? Yet too many of these hotels are being turned into migrant hotels.
Well, first of all, it's fantastic to hear you promoting UK domestic tourism. You're quite right. At COVID, when I came in at the beginning of COVID as chair of Visit England, there were no trips, no visitors. I'm pleased to say since I've left, those numbers have improved dramatically, although I can't quite take credit for that myself as my term draws to an end at Visit Britain. But to your central point, the challenge we have with international visitors and to a degree domestic visitors is that they go to the cities And most interestingly, international visitors, over half go to London and stay in and around London. And the real strategic challenge, which we are working on with partners and with the sector, is to encourage that growth to go into regions. Because I'll tell you what, when you've got a government that is claiming it is committed to growth, one of the quickest wins you can have is actually generating growth from the visitor economy. You can get a fast return, a swift return for a very small investment in helping drive people there. So when Manchester, for example, I talk about bringing people into Manchester, Alex, the structures of tourism also show that those same people can go into the regions around Manchester because of the way they're all hooked up, the way they all offer products to get people into the cities and out of the cities. It's crucial, and there's still a lot of work to do.
Is there a problem, therefore? But it's interesting what you say about London, because London, I think, has over 20 million hotel nights booked in a year compared to the next city down, which I believe is Edinburgh, with 2 million. The fact of the matter is a lot of tourists either come to see London or at least stay a few days in London before they might go and poke around other parts of the country. And London is not really doing us many favours at the moment. There's a lot of people coming to London, getting their phones nicked, looking at the crime, not feeling safe here. How much does that then impact upon tourism around the rest of the UK?
Well, first of all, London is a huge pull. And you're quite right, in some countries, particularly where they emphasize some of the troubles that you've had in and around the city, and you refer to one or two of the incidents, those need to be dealt with and explained, and people need to be made to feel safe. But the numbers coming into London are extraordinarily robust. They are high. And the trick, again, for us, is to encourage people to go elsewhere. And that it remains a real challenge. And there's infrastructure challenges, there's connectivity issues, there's getting more flights into regional centres. But actually, reputationally, Britain stands really high. So if for example, historical and cultural, we're second in the world perceived by visitors. London is actually, the challenge for us is London is the only city in the United Kingdom that is in the top 10 of destinations that people want to go to. So that gives you an idea of the size and challenge of what we have to do. But here's a warning, all right? Tourism has been growing year after year in terms of visitor numbers and in terms of revenues coming in. The problem is our competitor nations have recognized that it is a lazy assumption that governments of the past and the present are making that growth is going to continue. We are actually in danger of losing our competitive edge compared to competitor nations like France, for example, because in part, we are at risk of pricing ourselves out of business, but also making it a little bit harder to come to this country as a tourist. And really, we do welcome tourists. We want them here, and there is easy money for the country. Over 35 billion pounds from international tourists. Domestic tourism spends 85 billion pounds. Not many industries up there, Alex. And the trouble is, we've got to work hard to keep that and grow it.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. I always advocate for getting out and about around Britain. I try and do it. I just sort of go for a couple of days in my car. I love camping, so that's just a very cheap way of going to see wonderful parts of the country. I was just back from the New Forest. But the thing is, unless you're happy to pitch a tent, it's actually far cheaper to fly over to the Canary Islands for a week than go on a long weekend to the Lake District.
Well, you're right. Our competition is not necessarily between Blackpool and Skegness, as you've said, but it's actually between Blackpool and Benidorm. And to do that, we have to work hard both to help investment in those areas, get the not just the people up there, but the inward investment up there. I heard Darren Grimes on the programme talking earlier to you on other subjects and sort of saying, well, there's no hotels in County Durham. I don't think he quite meant that. But Northumberland and Durham are one of the most attractive places in Britain.
Don't tell everyone, Nick. It's a secret.
Well, I'm going to tell them, and I'm going up there myself later in August. But I'm going to tell them because only 4% of our international visitors go up there. And actually, to get some investment into the most beautiful part of the country, where the coastlines are some of the best in the world, it is something we've got to work hard at. And I'm going to say to Darren, because I know he'll be listening to you, you contact me. We're going to have a talk about how to improve that situation so people have got those places to stay.
Do you know, when I used to live up in Durham, it is stunning. It is beautiful. You're right, Northumberland. All the beaches up there are heavenly. Yes, you might not be able to sort of lie in your bikini, but don't worry, burn enough fossil fuels and you soon might be able to. But you know, the people up there sort of said, yeah, we're undiscovered. Don't tell too many people.
Yes. Well, my job is to tell everyone, and particularly those abroad.
I tell you what I've noticed, though, coming from Gloucestershire, when you look at their websites on the Cotswolds or you go to Bybury or something, you get signs which are in English and Japanese. The amount of Japanese tourists in the Cotswolds, it's insane, so much so that everything's bilingual. But it seems to me the Americans have just discovered the Cotswolds. I mean, that's kind of got to be good news. J.D. Vance is going on holiday there.
Coming over. Yeah. Yes, I sent a message of welcome to him only on Twitter earlier. I'm not expecting a reply. But he's discovered what many, many Americans have discovered. They are currently the mainstay of tourism. Now, after COVID, we lost a huge chunk of China and Asian visitors for a number of reasons. Basically, there weren't flights to come over. They were locked down longer than us. Then the Ukraine war, for all its horrors, came in. It also meant it's longer now to fly from Asia to Europe. But America came in with a vengeance, helped by low currency rates. They are spending huge amounts of money here, and long may it continue. And they're closely followed by, for example, the Gulf states, which are high-value visitors who come in. Our top markets are quite interesting. I won't test you on them or challenge them on you. But we are in a hugely competitive market. And there are people snapping at our heels. And only 3 months ago, the government cut the Great Budget, which is a bit of government spending I do support, because it is designed to be put into key markets and persuade Britain, that visitors to Britain, that this is the destination of choice. We're being outspent 7-1 compared to Ireland, little old Ireland.
Wow. Someone needs to tell J.D. Vance, though, that if he goes to the Oxfordshire Cotswolds, he might find a lot of people like Ellen DeGeneres who don't like Donald Trump. He should stick to the Gloucestershire bit. That's where the cool people are.
And there you go.
Nick, before you go, as a former Conservative politician, what are your thoughts and predictions for this shadow cabinet reshuffle that Badenoch's going to announce?
Well, to be fair, I was a little surprised that it's happened just now. I suppose it's to give time for her people to get into place. What I hear about James Cleverly coming back, I think, is a very good move. She needs some gravitas on her front bench. If she's actually ended the year in a much better place than perhaps even she thought she'd end up, because the Conservatives, let's be blunt, they're dire. No one's listening to them. They've had a terrible, terrible year. It can only get better. Generally, shuffling chairs around on a deck doesn't do the trick. But this is now the year that she has to deliver on proving that she's got a plan, a vision, guiding principles, things that are pretty old-fashioned but actually matter to people when they start to think about choosing their government and what they stand for. I cannot yet answer the question, what do the Conservatives stand for? I want to answer that question. I'm prepared to give them time to answer that question, but as yet I don't see signs of that.
Well, there you go. Wonderful talking to you. Wonderful catching up with you, Nick Dubois.